Okay, couldn't figure out how to just switch my camera, so here we go. I'm gonna try to set this. It's a very elaborate setup involving a salt shaker and stuff. Okay, I think that's good enough. Okay, so this is the complicated part. This is the roux. And so I start with some oil. Not a lot. You could measure it. It's like a couple of tablespoons is a good place to start. And then I turn it on, kind of like medium. I don't know if you can see the flame, but that's just to warm the oil up. And then this is off to the side so that I can watch these at the same time. Once I start stirring the roux, I'm going to basically ignore the gumbo. I mean the protein and vegetables. I don't have measurements on the cumin and paprika and other things because I don't measure them. That I would probably start with maybe a tablespoon of salt. That seems like a lot. 2 teaspoons of salt, a tablespoon of seasoned pepper, and a teaspoon of paprika, and maybe a teaspoon or 2 of the cumin. And then just kind of see how you like it and go from there. I just kind of give it like a generous coating over the top. So Ashley watched me make jambalaya one time. The only difference in gumbo and jambalaya is the rice and the roux. Like the rice is in the jambalaya. Otherwise, they're basically exactly the same meal. Like if I put rice in here, then it would be jambalaya. So, fun facts. Okay. So I don't know if you can see, but there's like a shimmer kind of on the oil. It looks kind of like a pond or like a lake. So that lets me know that it's warm enough. And a good ratio would be like 1 cup of flour to 2 tablespoons of oil. 1 cup of flour to 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm just going to do that. That's probably 1.5 cups of flour. But I'm using a little bit bigger pot, so I want a little bit more roux than I made last time. Okay. So then you just start stirring. And this is why I said that a video would be too long. Okay, so you see how it's kind of chunky? Don't worry about that. I mean, you can kind of mash them if you want to, but as the oil heats up a little bit more, it'll all sort of mix in the way it's supposed to. The important thing is, first off, make sure your fire's not too high, and if you feel like it is, turn it down. You'd rather it be too low than too high. The second thing is, don't ever stop stirring. Now, usually I make roux in cast iron, but my cast iron is in storage, and I did it in this nonstick last time, and it actually worked pretty well. My family can actually taste that it wasn't made in cast iron because we just have gotten used to that flavor. But they'll survive. So the nonstick works fine. And the thing about nonstick is once you turn the heat off, it cools a lot faster. When you turn the heat off of cast iron, it stays hot and keeps cooking for a long time, which is very important later. I also prefer to cook over gas. I feel like you get better control of the flame. It's just a preference. So, alright, so it's not really doing it. Turn it back up a little bit. I don't season the roux while it's cooking. I used to, and then I stopped because it's really hard to tell the difference in scorched flour or black pepper. So I was getting anxious. I was giving myself anxiety over burning my roux when really I hadn't. It was just the pepper. So now I wait and season it when it's done. And I don't know if you've ever heard this practical wisdom in your life, but there's no saving a scorched roux. If it scorches, just throw it out and start over. Yeah. So sometimes if your flame is low enough and you're trying to get this dark enough, I've had a roux take up to 45 minutes. I'm hoping that this one with the non-stick is a little bit faster because I don't want to stand here and talk for 45 minutes. I also have a time lapse of this process on my Instagram. So you can just fast forward through this part until you start to see it get a little bit brown. If you didn't fast forward it yet, I don't think Mom stirs her flour like this when she browns it. I know that she has browned flour before for her gravy, like when she makes roasting gravy. And I think she just turns it on and like lets it sit and then stirs it, because I honestly don't think Mom would have had the patience to just like stand here and stir. Because Mom didn't like to cook. She didn't enjoy it. But I do. So I like to stand here and make a really nice dark roux. It was cold, so I turned the oven on and I forgot. Elijah's playing Fortnite online with his friends in the background. Oh, that was hot. Okay, it's starting to brown up a little bit. Once it starts to toast, it goes very quickly.
Trust me, I also cannot get out of my box.
Can you see right there in the middle where the heat is where it's, let me try again. So when you see how right there, it's a little darker. That's what you want. That's why you need to keep it in constant motion because those little spots will cook unevenly, and if you don't have it constantly stirring like that, then one little spot could burn. So I have a chart that I can send you, or you can Google it. That's the different colors of roux. I like to get mine very, very dark. And again, it's mostly just sort of, honestly, it's like a show-off kind of thing. Like, look what I can do. Okay, I'm turning that off just for a minute because it's cooked and I don't want to have to keep looking at it. I like to use a wooden spoon because it doesn't scratch, but I like to use the kind that's like a triangle with the flat edge. So mine are in a different box in storage, which is why I'm using this wooden spoon, but it gets the job done. I also used that one Pioneer woman cutting board that's in the sink, and like one steak knife to cut everything. So it's not necessarily about your equipment, it's about your ingenuity. Honestly, Cajun food is French people who were starving and poor and couldn't buy anything, and they said, what can I use? What are my resources? I have rice, and I have sausage because the French were river people and they had hogs, and they had chickens. So, okay. I don't know if you can tell, but it's really starting to smoke a lot, and this is when you really just can't turn your back on it. You can't take a second to stir something else. You really just need to be all eyes on the prize. If you have an exhaust fan, this is also the time to use it. And if you're using cast iron, this is the point where I would probably turn off the heat. I'm going to go just a smidge darker, and then I'm going to turn the heat off. I don't know if you can tell that the texture has changed a little bit too. It's like a little more packy than it was, kind of more crumbly, and it is absolutely burning my hand, like the spoon. The spoon is absorbing the heat. If I had thought earlier, I would have gotten a pot holder. Okay, that's the point where I'm turning the heat off. So this is just the flour and oil. Even though the heat is off, the pot is still warm. So I'm going to keep stirring that around. You can see maybe the smoke coming off of it. Okay, this is the next key step, and this is why I like to bake make gumbo with somebody, you have to add hot water. So just quickly turn on the faucet full hot. And let it get just as very hot as it can. Mine gets hot very quickly. Can you see it steaming? Alright, this is when we go two-handed. So, stir with one hand the best you can. Get some of that very hot water and just add a little in. And then stir. Be careful of your hands because the steam will get you. Now, the flour will kind of start to like halfway cook and it'll rise. See? See how it's getting puffy? Okay. So then, add more water. Now the dangerous part's over. It's cooled down enough now that it won't scorch.
Whoa, you're right behind the truck right now.
So, sometimes I get a whisk for this part, which I'm going to do right now. The oil makes it kind of separate. Uh-oh, look. That's where it started to scorch, see? Usually, there we go. Usually it blends up a little bit better. Which it doesn't really matter because we're going to add water to the pot anyway. So this is a little thinner than I would like it. I added a little too much water trying to get rid of that gross texture. Alright, so now, oh, I can't use salt because it's holding my phone up. I'll go ahead and do some cumin. It's a new bottle, so it's really, yeah. And I would err on the side of kind of like over seasoning because it's the roux, so you can, it's where all the flavor is. Okay, here's the seasoned pepper again. So like I could use half of this and for my gumbo, and then if it was too thin or tasted a little bland, then I could add more. Okay. I'm just gonna use some Tony's instead of salt.
And JB, the pudding's one stick in fourth place.
So,
Wow, what a miracle.
okay. There's a shadow on it, so I don't know if you can tell the color that it is. EJ! Son! Okay.
Oh no, he's gonna hit a wall.
Just a second. Elijah! Chill out! My whole house is full of smoke. Okay. So it's kind of a weird texture. This one's a lot juicier than it should be. But like I said, we're just about to add it to the gumbo, so it's fine. Now I'm going to taste it.
Hey, can you not kill the, let's see, what they mode? Can you not kill the...
I think it
Can you not
probably
kill the
needs
black
salt. I'm
bear,
trying
though?
not to add salt. Okay. So I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to turn it up kind of high. And then I'm going to give this a good stir and get in the edges. And then just pour some in. I'm actually going to use it all. Yay!
Are you chasing me?
Okay. And then I don't want to leave any of that behind, so I'm just going to add some more water. And then stir that around. Now, I want my gumbo to have more juice. I'm going to add more water. And there it is, gumbo. Let me go ahead and add my salt. I don't know. You can see how the roux is kind of separated in there. This is the second time that's happened, and it has never happened to me before. So I don't know if it's, like, I don't know if the cast iron, if I'm using too much oil, or if the cast iron usually soaks up a little bit of the oil. Either is probably true. I mean, they could both be right. It could be anything, honestly. But I'm going to let this come to a boil, and because I think last time after it boiled a little while, it didn't look quite like that anymore. So I will check back in a second.